Learners, so sir has joined, Dr. Jena has joined. No doubt it's a bit late. Sorry for interrupting, already sir has told. I don't want to waste much time. Straight away, I welcome to sir to today's session. So I welcome today, sir. You start your presentation, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, welcome to learners. So I'm sorry for the late because of this eclipse, solar eclipse. So
You can
today
continue
we'll
for another
discuss
10 minutes,
about
no
the
problem, sir. Sir, you can
sir.
continue for 5:15, not an issue.
Yes, sir. So so urban issues in India. We'll discuss about the block 7 today. Urban issues in India. So we have already discussed about what is urban. So issues means the problems, urban problems in India. So we'll discuss about that there are Indian society has been Indian urban society particularly has been facing a number of socio-economic environmental problems. So these are the problems are becoming mounting day by day. So today we'll discuss about the different urban problems that we found in India. It is also all over the world, the urban problems. But in particularly, we will study these urban problems in Indian context. So the first problem that we likely to discuss is that is the poverty. So poverty, is a proverbial in India. Poverty is very proverbial in India, and it is the central paradox of modern India, particularly the urban India. So poverty is the central paradox of modern India, particularly urban India, and half a century of democracy, more than half a century of democracy, at least 70, at about 74 or 75 years of democracy, more than 70 years of planning, economic growth, constitutional commitment to social justice has not lessened the degree of poverty in India. That is the most important plight. So majority of the still India is considered as one of the poverty-stricken countries. So particularly this poverty is more acute in case of urban India. So once upon a time, it was considered in India that the rural society stands for its poverty and urban society stands for its affluence. ଆମେ ସାଧାରଣତଃ କହିଥାଉ ଯେ ସହର ଅଞ୍ଚଳ ଗୋଟେ ଧନୀ ଅଞ୍ଚଳ ଏବଂ ରୁରାଲ ଲୋକମାନେ ଗରିବ କିନ୍ତୁ the things is not so. Recent studies have shows that the urban poverty seems to be more acute even than the rural poverty. So that's why we will likely to study how the poverty in urban India is more acute and intolerable, and also draw the attention of planners, administrators, politicians, and peoples of all sections of life. So there are several issues pertaining to urban poverty. Urban poverty can be understood from different dimensions. There are various dimensions from which you can understand urban poverty. But how to measure poverty? Because measuring poverty is also one of the problem. Everywhere we're discussing about poverty. But how to measure poverty? There is the controversy lies there. Different planners, different committees, different experts, different economists have studied and given a different measures to measure poverty. But however, from the very beginning, poverty was considered as an economic problem. But later on, it is not a economic problem here. It is considered as a more a socio-economic problem. It is a more social problem than economics. So, because different factors or parameters that is being attached to poverty, so that's why it is most sociological problem also. So, however, poverty is a multi-dimensional phenomenon, and it is caused by a variety of factors. A variety of factors are responsible for the poverty. So it differs from country to country, from place to place, from person to person. So poverty is so complex. So understanding poverty, that's why it became so complex, because it varies from person to person, from country to country, from society to society, from family to family, and from time to time. So that's why it is so complex that it is very difficult to discuss about it. But ordinarily by poverty, we mean at conceptual level, it refers to a deprivation in terms of consumption. Different parameters has been given by different scholars from to measure poverty. That is calorie consumption, well-being, social well-being, nutritional intake, housing condition, health, education. All these are these factors. Besides, considered as the factors for which from which you can consider poverty. So all the poverty considerations are income, low income is also one of the factors of poverty that has been discussed. Then there have been still it is difficult to decide from which angle is to measure poverty. Who angle प्रकृत poverty को measure कराया करीबो ताया एपर्यंत गोटे केबळे expenditure is also one of the considered as a measure to measure poverty of people. How much people spend per day. But recently that has been calculated accordingly. जे जति खर्च कर परची सेति खर्च केते करूची खर्च per day से अनुसार poverty standard दिसुची. Government has also decided poverty line below poverty line BPL line on the basis of income, but now it is shifted from income to expenditure. जने केते expenditure करी परची से अनुसार तार poverty decide करे. So the parameters of poverty changes from time to time. However, there have been poverty assessment carried on by different in almost 50 poverty assessments carried out by some countries, and so there is no one, or there is more than 50 assessment, and there is a little consistency regarding how poverty line is established. Even some country define poverty line as an absolute term, while others take it as a relative concept. Some say that there is typology of poverty. I mean, there are two प्रकार poverty अच्छी, ଗୋଟେ ହେଉଛି absolute poverty, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଉଛି relative poverty. तीव्र दारिद्रता ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ relative ମାନେ ତୁଳନାତ୍ମକ ଦାରିଦ୍ରତା. तीव्र दारिद्र्य when one is derived from the basic necessities of life. ଯେତେବେଳେ ମୌଳିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ପୂରଣ କରିବାର ଜଣେ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ହୁଏ, can find the food, clothing and shelter and education, health का ପର କଥା. So these are the 5 basic requirements. But ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜଣଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଏଇ ତିନିଟା ବି ନଥାଏ ସେତେବେଳେ ତ ଗୋଟେ absolute poverty ବୋଲି ଆମେ କହିଥାଉ. Relative poverty କହିଲେ others ଆମେ ତୁଳନା କରୁ, ସେମାନଙ୍କ ତାଙ୍କର ଏଇଟା ନାହିଁ ମୋର ଅଛି ମୋର ଏଇଟା ନାହିଁ. So that's why in compare କରିକି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ poverty କରୁ ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ relative concept ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଏ. ତେଣୁ these are the concept from which you can understand country. So however, poverty is both a social as well as economic concept. social aspect रे social standard social standings once नहीं, housing shortage अच्छी, health problem ना अच्छी, education नहीं, access to education मध्य नहीं, they can feed themselves for 2 day per meal. So these are the criteria from which we can measure poverty. But however, वर्तमान poverty का measurement करा जाती basically expenditure, social expenditure by household expenditure को नहीं, average household expense size को नहीं कि वर्तमान poverty measurement करा जाती. तेणु ये जो methodological inconsistency that defeat the very purpose of a collective quantitative data about poverty. ये जो methodological inefficiency, that how to measure poverty, what are the criteria, what are the parameters from how to exactly calculate poverty, and that will be accurate. That's why there is a controversy regarding poverty. So, however, poverty is a condition in which is a state or a condition in which a person become unable to fulfill his basic requirements and to survive as an individual and to maintain his social standing in society. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏଇ ସବୁ କରିବାରୁ ଜଣେ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ହୁଏ ତାକୁ ଆମେ ପୁଅର ବା ଦରିଦ୍ର ବୋଲି କହିପାରିବା, ତାର ସେଇ ଅବସ୍ଥାକୁ ଆମେ କଣ୍ଡିସନ. So poverty refers to a condition. Poverty refers to a condition, whereas poor refers to a person. और poor कहले जने व्यक्ति को हमें बुझू, किंतु poverty कहले एटा गोटे जनकर अवस्था को बुझाए, refers to one's condition. So there are certain socio-cultural, socio-historical analysis of poverty studies. How can conduct socio-culture? There are different socio-historical analysis of poverty studies. So poverty studies go back to the late 19th and the early 20th century in Britain. Poverty studies start both late Aramala. It was particularly in Britain where they were closely associated with the beginning of empirical sociology. There are two persons named who conduct his study on poverty in Britain. They are Shibam and Roundtree were the two famous Charles in Britain, Charles Booth and Shibam Roundtree were the two persons who were both men of wealth, were guided by the philanthropic motives to conduct a research on poverty. So their research initiated by both these influenced the later sociological inquiry on poverty. So Peter Townsend has wrote his monumental work in the second half of the 20th century, book on poverty. They mention that a study of town life, Roundtree book Poverty and Study of Town Life. So Britain scholar S. Roundtree by Shivam Roundtree has conducted his study and wrote a book on a poverty, a study of town life, which is published in 1901. What a study kale, ebong setire se dekeile the how it is the first poverty studies conducted by these two persons. So they on his the relative and absolute. Tankar groundwork he have distinguished between two kind of poverty. So for Roundtree, poverty was a condition in which earnings were insufficient to meet the minimum requirement of a healthy, productive life. ତେଣୁ ପ୍ରଥମ ବ୍ରିଟେନ ସ୍କଲାର ଯିଏକି ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିଥିଲେ ପଭର୍ଟି ଉପରେ ସେ ପ୍ରଥମେ କହିଲେ ଯେ ପଭର୍ଟି ହେଉଛି ଗୋଟେ କଣ୍ଡିସନ ପଭର୍ଟି ହେଉଛି ଗୋଟେ କଣ୍ଡିସନ ଯୋଉଠିକି ଜଣେ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ତାର ଆୟ ଏକ ସୁସ୍ଥ ଆବଶ୍ୟକ ଏକ ସୁସ୍ଥ ଏବଂ ଉତ୍ତମ ଜୀବନ ଯାପନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତାକୁ ଜଣେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ତାର ଆୟ ଅନୁସାରେ ପୂରଣ କରିପାରେ ନାହିଁ ତାର ସେଇ ଅବସ୍ଥାକୁ ଆମେ ଦାରିଦ୍ରତା ବୋଲି କହିଥାଉ ତାଙ୍କର ବହିରେ ଏସ୍ ରାଉଣ୍ଡଟ୍ରି ଇନ୍ ହିଜ୍ ବୁକ୍ poverty, a study in town life, he has defined poverty in this way. So poverty was a condition in which the earnings were insufficient to meet the minimum requirement of a healthy life and productive life. So in this conception of poverty, he has given two conceptions of poverty, that is relative and absolute poverty. So another scholar named the American anthropologist Oscar Lewis, who worked in India, popularized the concept of culture of poverty. He speaks about a new concept, that is culture of poverty. Culture of poverty. So that culture of poverty, it has been refers to that poverty is a culture. The people accept poverty. So that's why he consider it as a culture of poverty. There are some people who accept poverty as their course from their previous action. आम भारत विचार जन दरिद्र कहीं भगवान आमको दरिद्र कर पूर्व कर्म जो आम दरिद्र दिस काइंड ऑफ जस्टिफिकेशन हैज बीन given for poverty. So poverty, that's why he said poverty is a culture. Some people, they do not try to improve their condition to go out of poverty. It was the condition. So poverty, they accept poverty as a culture, as their culture. So however, so he have given this concept to Oscar Lewis in his study, while he studies poverty in Indian condition, he have given this condition of culture of poverty. So then poverty can be understood from different theoretical approaches. I mean, poverty को विभिन्न प्रकार theoretical approach रू बुझा जाई परिबो. So sociologists have not typically viewed the question of poverty and the poor solely in terms of income level. Sociologists माने केवल income level ले poverty को consider करते नहीं. There are several sociologists, Miller, Martin Rain, have got involved in discussion on the relevance and conceptual issues underlying the poverty line. So that's why there was different scholars who have viewed poverty from different angles. So as a result, there are different theoretical frameworks developed to explain the concept of poverty. Only good theoretical framework developed and so we'll examine these theoretical perspectives. So pratham hoji cultural perspective. A theoretical framework has been developed by the different scholars. What is the cultural perspective? How is the situational perspective? So, cultural perspective, that has been very fashionable since 1960 after the Oscar Lewis studies that to speak a culture of poverty, the term coined by Oscar Lewis and popularized by Michael Harrington. So, particularly in American society, it refers to a lives of the poor, at least many of the urban poor, not only economically but many other aspects as well. They were economically urban लोकमान केवल poor नथिले, other aspect poor. They've been different or deviant with respect to whole as a pattern of behavior. They also shows the behavior different due to poverty. So according to this cultural perspective on poverty, the lower class is seen as a manifesting a pattern of behavior and values which are characteristically different from those of the dominant pattern behavior. जने poverty शिकार हुए से गोटे प्रकार बिहेवियर ए लोअर क्लास लोक माने गोटे प्रकार बिहेवियर करंती जाकी गोटे समाज रे प्रचलित बिहेवियर ठारू भिन्न सो डोमिनेंट बिहेवियर ठारू भिन्न तेनु से दृष्टि कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव गोटे बिहेवियर पैटर्न रे जो डिफरेंशिएशन से दृष्टि ताकू आलोचना करे फ्रॉम द कल्चर सो देयर बिहेवियर पैटर्न ने बिकॉज़ ऑफ पॉवर्टी देयर बिहेवियर पैटर्न बा व्यवहारिक पद्धति रे भिन्नता देखा जाए दैट इज व्हाट कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव स्पीक्स अबाउट. So there are certain subcultural determinants, values, certain subcultural determinant, socio-economic status of the poor, set up under poverty condition को decide करे. तेनु से दृष्टि it is cultural perspective आलोचना करे जे poverty is a cultural culture specific. So then situational perspective. Situational perspective, in contrast to the cultural perspective, there is an alternative situational or structural perspective. हमें situational perspective को structural perspective माने विचार करा जाए, consider करा जाए पारे. एवं ये structural बा संरचनात्मक दृष्टिकोण रू एटा होची poor are viewed in a very different light. ए माने poor माने दरिद्रता को गोटे different light रू देखि जाए बा situation परिस्थिति बा संरचना रीति का. The structure of a society is responsible for poverty. The poor do manifest statistically unique pattern of behavior. The situationalist argues that these drives are not internally generated by the values of the poor, but rather externally as an enviable consequence of their poverty unfavorable position in social structure. तेणु से जो deviant type kind of behavior जो शो करूची बा behavior जो भिन्नता देखे दउची सिचुएशनलिस्ट माने कहउछंती एटा गोटे तार सिचुएशन नु ता भीतर गोटा ए प्रकार बिहेवियर सृष्टि होची. इट इज नॉट ड्यू टू हिज पॉवर्टी रादर इट इज ड्यू टू द सिचुएशन एक्सटर्नल सिचुएशन तार इंटरनल वैल्यू जो तार बिहेवियर सेमति देखा होनी बरं तार एक्सटर्नल सिचुएशन ताकू ए प्रकार बिहेवियर शो करिया को बाध्य करू. दैट इज द सिचुएशनल पर्सपेक्टिव सेज दैट पॉवर्टी इज a product of a situation or generated by the not by the value of internal value but by the external situation which is the inevitable consequence of the occupying a unfavorable position in a social structure. जते बेले जने एक सामाजिक संरचना रे गोटे unfavorable position बा स्थिति रे थाए से unfavorable position बा unfavorable situation ता भितरे गोटे प्रकार बिहेवियर पैटर्न शो करे एवं जोति पई सेटा दारिद्रता अछि बोली कि हमें जानि पारे. तेनु एई कारणरू situational perspective कोची the product poverty is a product of situations. So then we will discuss about the poverty studies in India. Poverty studies in India. So poverty studies in India prior to development of sociology, the poverty studies in India has been preserved of economists, not of sociologists. So Dandekar and Ratha opined that poverty studies was exclusively domain prior to the development of sociology. It was the exclusive domain of the economists. But there are some others also, some Tendulkar, Sanderson, Bardhan and Srinivasan, they have also supported this view. They have been driven by the preoccupation with the development of planning in which economists have played a leading role. एमाने कहले जे डेवलपमेंट प्लान इकोनॉमिस्ट माने गुरुत्वपूर्ण भूमिका ग्रहण करजंती and poverty studies in India are concentrated in counting the number of units, usually household or individuals, falling below certain level of consumption, expenditure or income. Consumption, expenditure and income a ground rule poverty को स्थिर करा India पे. But Amartya Sen wrote, Amartya Sen, the famous Nobel laureate for social economics, and she says the Indian poor may not be accustomed to receiving much help, for they are beginning to get used to being counted. The poor in this country have lately been lined up in all kinds of different ways and have subjected to several sophisticated head counts. You know, later on, Planning Commission set up soon after independence played a leading part in initiating, stimulating, organizing the research on poverty. तापरे poverty studies India रे विशेष करी आरंभ होला with the effort of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission नो effort बଳରେ भारत रे poverty studies बा poverty अध्ययन मान आरंभ होला. Planning Commission encourages to have a complete understanding on the meaning of poverty. भारतीय दारिद्र्यता सटीक भाव बुझिया पई Planning Commission विभिन्न स्कॉलर बा विभिन्न कैटेगरी रो इंडिविजुअल मानन को इंटेलिजेंसिया विभिन्न कैटेगरी लोक मानन को एनकरेज करे, स्टिमुलेट करे टू कंडक्ट a research on poverty दारिद्र्यता ऊपर विभिन्न गवेषणा करिया पई. Because then only after through this research then poverty of India will be better understood, and then only for the eradication of this problem certain steps may be taken. So then about the cause, nature, eradication of poverty, it is a subject of long debate in India. What are the causes of poverty? What are the nature of poverty? How poverty can be eradicated in India? This has been continued to be a long debate in Indian society. Now there is always differentiation in the view. Whatever attempts we have made, much of planning has been made, much discussion, symposia, seminar has been conducted on poverty, but still poverty in India is being misunderstood. Still we are unable to eradicate poverty. So this proves that perhaps we have not sufficiently understand this vital social problem that has consumed the vital body fabric of our society. So however, poverty has requires different kinds of explanation by the sociologists and economists. So after decolonization after decolonization, what happened? Now that poverty has been analyzed from different angles. Prior to colonization, we have considered the Britishers were responsible for our poverty. Britishers mane amar but later after decolonization, the instrument of policy became national and debate shifted to address the issues of internal migration to rural, poor to urban centers. आम से poverty concept change होगला and जो migration rural urban migration internal migration जो मतलब poverty होची बोले poverty होची and growth of slum रा growth जो poverty होची issue this was the cause of poverty in India बोले आज the process of inquiry into conditions of poverty have been influenced by government policies. Government policy द्वारा हमें poverty टाकू परिचालना करे. The process inquiry से policy माध्यम रे inquiry करागला. So अनेक समय रे poverty रा real nature टा would not come to the limelight. However, poverty reduction is a prominent objective of social economic development. Socio-economic development of in the Indian Constitution. भारतीय संविधान रे poverty eradication पे बहुत गुड़े जोर दिया जायछि. Finding expression in plans, policy statement and program. Different program में depend करा जायछि. So poverty has long been recognized as an interlocking condition of assetlessness, unemployment, low wage, low income, disease, prone to disease, illiteracy, gender bias, economic vulnerability, social disadvantaged group, political powerlessness, political aloofness. So, lack of interest of the planners to implement the policies. So, or the executive lack of interest on the part of executive to implement the policies made by the planners. So all these reasons are responsible for the analysis of poverty studies in now recent studies and on its cause and certain suggestion on its eradication and associated structured job opportunity in modern urban sectors and by this liberalization, the LPG, that liberalization finance minister but and associate structural ଗୋଟେ ନୂଆ job opportunity ଏବଂ rural urban migration ଟା ଅଧିକ so people new a huge of employment and running down the urban so but critics of sorry, due to some problems, network problems, it has now. So, the recent data from National Sample Survey Organization, our NSO जो survey recent data बना, तादरे देखा है that indicate a decline in poverty at national and state level. हमारा poverty टा कम हुई, no doubt. State level ले व national level ले poverty कम हुई. But this further this reveal that this national sample survey पुणे reveal करती प्रकाश करती the poverty level in urban areas in many of the states are higher than the rural poverty. This is one of the peculiar feature of survey that we get. That केतक अंचल रे केतक स्टेट रे rural poverty ର degree ଠାରୁ urban poverty ଟା ଅଧିକ acute are higher than the urban poverty. That means the nature of development. It suggests that the nature of development, urbanization, would themselves be the factor responsible for the persistence of urban poverty. तारे कौन रोहिला problem? चलो urbanization आसिले हमें कोई जे poverty पड़ेगा, किंतु it is the urbanization and the nature of development. So development डाले हमें कोई जे poverty पड़ेगा, किंतु what is the nature of development? What type of development we want to implement? That is what is important. So nature of development and urbanization is also responsible for this acuteness of the poverty in urban, persistence of poverty in urban society. So, a level above the rural poverty. It was widely believed that human, among planners, policymakers, and researchers, that economic stagnation was at the root of most social evils, and the economic growth would be the engine of social transformation and reduce poverty. ତେଣୁ ଯେପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆମର ସୋସିଆଲ ଟ୍ରାନ୍ସଫର୍ମେସନ ବା ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଗ୍ରୋଥ ହୋଇନି ଆମେ ପଭର୍ଟି ରିଡ୍ୟୁସଟା ସହଜ ହେବନି. Then different studies also, this urban studies, poverty studies reveal that the level of poverty in small, medium towns is much above than the metropolitan class 1 cities. Level of poverty. Small town, metropolitan or small town poverty condition that so these are the different urban studies, informations or data that we receive from the different studies. Then urban poverty. So urban poverty is the first great sociological studies on poverty in Britain by Booth and Rowntree. Studies of urban poverty. Prathama study urban poverty पर की करते ना these two Englishmen, Booth and Rowntree. Rowntree wrote a book, a study on urban city life. तांकर से बही रे से poverty को define करते एवं से poverty रो कारण कहउछंती industrialization, economic order, create a new economic order and create not only create poverty but also create wealth. Industrialization जो new economic order से business तो create करूची, no doubt, wealth create करूची, but at the same time it also poverty मतलब सृष्टि. It also create poverty. Every great city has one or more slums where the working class is crowded together. So poverty often dwells in hidden, all is close to the palaces of rich. Urban सहर rich manଙ୍କର जो skyscrapers, those sky touching buildings, तार पछरे poverty लुचित रहछि. Poverty is hidden in the urban society. So the poverty and overcrowding are two most viable feature of industrial slums and urban poverty. Overcrowding nature, then ill-paid. So these are the number of factors that are responsible for urban poverty. So another factor that is responsible for urban poverty is the social disability and economic disadvantage. Social disability and economic disadvantage go hand in hand to create poverty in urban areas. So then the attention to the social as well as economic aspect of poverty. Rowntree in his books discuss about both the social as well as economic aspect of poverty. Because social factor as well as economic factor. So it gives stress on social disability and economic disadvantage. The people who are remain are the economic disadvantage or do not access to wealth, they do not access to credit. So these are the economic disadvantage. They remain at they have no capital at all. So neither they can get help from the banks or financial institutions, nor any access to capital. So this economic disadvantage has also created forces them to be poor. Another is social disability. The individuals in urban society, many individuals in urban society have suffered from various social disabilities. Maybe personal disabilities or maybe the societal. They are poor, their father is poor, so they are poor. So social, they are divided from socially excluded categories. So that was the cause of their poverty. So then urban poverty in India. Urban poverty in India. Okay, so what are the nature of urban poverty in India? So the impact of development policy since independence on poverty scenario is very significant. From the very development policy since independence, after independence, the Indian government has been carried out different, has been implementing different program, poverty eradication program, different development plans and programs. But in spite of that, the poverty continues. The percentage of people below the poverty line has always been less in urban areas than the rural communities. It was 50 in 1973-74. It was 56.44% rural area, whereas 70.43% in higher than that in urban areas. Urban area jeti thila tato rural area re adhika thila. The scenario remained largely the same. Only the gap has gone down over the decade. Each decade pore eta change hela. Urban poverty bele keteko urban anchal rahi asila joti the poverty is more acute than the rural area. Keteko urban anchal re poverty ta rural anchal taru adhika tibra. Poverty estimate in any year are worked out by updating the poverty line of 73-74. 73 को नहीं गिरी, but poverty line is तरह करा जाए, एवं the baseline figure is the calorie norms. अगर the calorie norms व्यतिरिक्त तक आलोचना करा जाए, calorie norms for rural and urban areas 2,400 calories, and for the male urban areas and 21 calorie for rural areas. That has been considered as the low. This shows that this low requirement in urban compared to the rural areas are defended on the basis of the difference in the nature of employment and engagement physical level. ସେଥିପାଇଁ per capita calorie requirement rural area रे अधिक, that is 2400 calorie, ଏବଂ urban area रे 2100 calorie of food. So on the basis of this calorie of food, that urban poverty has been measured in India. There is a decline in urban poverty in many of the states, and the few others during 80s and 90s lead a serious probing, because most of the less developed states like Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan report a higher level of urban poverty in 1999 and 2000 as per National Sample Survey. A significant point emerging from the interstate analysis, the urban poverty, what is the trends of urban poverty, interstate analysis and a significant point emerging from that interstate analysis that the inequality in poverty levels in recent years has gone up both in rural as well as urban areas. This implies that poverty reduction has been uneven across states. ତେଣୁ ଏଥିରୁ ଆମେ ଏ ଯୋଉ ଷ୍ଟଡି କ'ଣ ଦର୍ଶାଇଲା ନା ସାରା ଭାରତରେ ଗୋଟିଏ ଫର୍ମରେ ୟୁନିଫର୍ମ ରେଟ୍ରେ ପଭର୍ଟି ରିଡକ୍ସନ it will differ from state to state and from country to country and from place to place. ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସ୍ଥାନରୁ ଗୋଟେ place ରୁ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ place କୁ differ କରୁଛି. So the success of the developed state in making a dent of poverty has been much more than the poorer state. Poverty कमेबारे अन्य स्टेट माने डेवलप्ड स्टेट माने सफल होतला बेले किंतु पुअर स्टेट माने सेटिंग करने सफल नहीं. So poverty, urban poverty in India thus has a variable nature. So one may opine that the dynamics of developing the urban areas of the state during last few decades, that rapid economic growth होची, but rapid economic growth, I mean, यदि urban विभिन्न developed state रो dynamics of development को जीवा, तलो अनेक गुड़े development policy निया जाऊँगी, but in spite of that policy, poverty eradication program, development policies, the growth has not led to a corresponding decline in poverty. जो परिमाण रे जो poverty eradication program लागू करा जाउची, डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम लागू कराउची सेही करेस्पोंडेंस सेही तुलना रे सेही हार रे पॉवर्टी डिक्लाइन हो नाही परन अर्बन पॉवर्टी that emerge as a more complex phenomenon than rural poverty. तो जेहेतु एते गुडे योजना सत्वे हाई लिटरेसी रेट सत्वे विभिन्न अपॉर्चुनिटी सत्वे all access to all kinds of facilities सत्वे access to health, access to education, access to employment ये सबु सत्वे urban the nature of urban poverty has acquired a more complex nature अधिक जटिल होउची than the rural poverty in the present day. So indeed, the poverty levels happen to be high in towns and cities in some of the particular backward states of the country. It is urban society, urban center of poverty is high level, rural society poverty down. So Andhra Pradesh और ओडिशा जो poverty lack of development हो पाए, किंतु कर्नाटक सेटा तो डेवलप कम पाए, कर्नाटक, महाराष्ट्र, तमिलनाडु एमान तो सब पूछो कि उन्नत देश सेटी काहे प्रॉब्लम होची सेटी ड्यू टू the development itself. ଅଧିକ development, that means it shows the development itself also create poverty. Had it not been so, that is something how the state, rich state, city madhya kahinki urban poverty madhya adhika hochi. So this all this makes a urban poverty a very complex phenomenon and requires further research on this workforce to the factors behind high level of poverty in this state. एठी जो अर्बन पॉवर्टी जो होची तार आउट फैक्टर होची कोन ना कैजुअलाइजेशन मार्जिनलाइजेशन ऑफ वर्कफोर्स जो होची सिटी रे अर्बन सेक्टर रे से माने जो मार्जिनलाइज होतुंदी सेटा मध्ये मोडे फैक्टर होची पॉवर्टी इवन ड्यूरिंग 90s in many developed states 90s 1990 बेलु को मध्ये अर्बन पॉवर्टी रिमेन हायर देन रूरल पॉवर्टी सेटा को शहर रे अर्बन पॉवर्टी मध्ये हायर रहला सेटी मध्ये high madhika dekhaku. So however the close correlation with the level of rural poverty indicate that the two cannot be viewed separately. There is no indication that rural poverty केतेबेला अधिक होउची केतेबेला urban poverty का होते तेनु वय urban poverty and rural poverty are correlated. तेनु एटा तेनु a close correlation जेत उभय कविता अछि it demands that we can't understand indicate or it demands or indicate that these two rural poverty and urban poverty cannot be viewed separately. हमें उभय को बुझले ही बुझ परबा और the acceleration of structural changes and poverty analysis कोची यदि हमें structural change or poverty analysis विश्लेषण कर देखिबा the level of urban is more closely linked with the overall indicators of economic development. इंडिकेटर डेवलपमेंट रो जो इंडिकेटर अछि अर्बन पॉवर्टी रे एगुडा कर मध्यम किछि त्रुटि होछि जोटा कि हमर अर्बन पॉवर्टी पई अगर कोन अधिक हमारा कारण होछि तेनु जो स्लो डिक्रीज होछि ओवरऑल हम कहूजे जे अर्बन अंचल रे पॉवर्टी का ऑल ओवर इंडिया रूरल ओवर अर्बन ऑल ओवर रे पॉवर्टी रो डिक्लाइन दा वेरी स्लो इन इंडिया Thank you, slow होती ना तार कारण होती there is a slow decrease in poverty in India perhaps due to the slow overall structural change. हमारे जो structural change होती Indian society रे एटा मतलब slow और सही structural change रा slow कारण हो भारत रे ये poverty रा nature of poverty is मतलब slow decline nature of decline of poverty also slow. So the key to removal of urban poverty, you know, urban poverty खाली development, industrialization, urbanization cannot be the solution for the solution of the urban problem. You know, शिल्पीकरण, शिल्पर संप्रसारण, शहरीकरण, industrial growth ये सब डेवलपमेंट मेजर्स ये सब माध्यम रे आमे अर्बन पॉवर्टी को केवल समाधान करि परिबा नाही केना आमे जो बड़ बड़ शहर रे आमे इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलप्ड सिटी रे मध्ये आमे देखुचे ये सब डेवलपमेंट इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन सब अफ्लुएंस सत्वे urban poverty exists at the in a hidden form. What is the cause of this? For this, it is a new study shows that that the key to removal of urban poverty is agricultural growth of the rural area. The rural area अंचलर agricultural growth हबो ताहा urban poverty ह्रास करिवारे सहायक हेबो. एग्रीकल्चरल ग्रोथ नहले तेणु आम ये डिस्कसन करुले अर्बन पवर्टी और रूरल पवर्टी को आम सेपरेट कर देखी पारा ना कारण उभयंकर दैट इज एति कोरिलेशन अच्छी they can't be studied separately. And we are also our experiences of more than 70 years of experience shows that 70 we can't reduce urban poverty only by industrialization, urbanization, and development measures. So the removal of urban poverty requires the agricultural growth of the country or the rural areas. It is difficult to sustain the high growth rate in manufacturing activity. I mean, growth rate का manufacturing activity by industry सबले अधिक रही परिबा नहीं. And employment growth मतलब सबले अधिक हबनी industry सबले रहबो. Without accompanying improvement in agriculture. जब agriculture is sustainable growth हेलानी बा agriculture क्षेत्र में जब improvement न होला poverty को ह्रास कर परिबा नहीं. So that's why the magnitude of non-agricultural employment growth is needed for poverty removal. So poverty removal पई केवल non-agricultural में agricultural growth मतलब दरकार. Non-agricultural employment तो होची किंतु agricultural employment को मतलब सृष्टि करि पारले agriculture magnitude of agricultural employment is needed for removal of poverty. If there is adequate growth in agricultural productivity, then it will create agricultural productivity अधिक हले, it will create more employment opportunity and it will be able to eradicate urban poverty in some measure. That is the nature of what is urban poverty and how it can be solved. So agricultural growth is required for the solution of urban poverty. Then let us discuss about the globalization of poverty. You know, after 1990, that India accept the liberalization, LPG policy, that liberalization, globalization. So globalization means concerning the globe. That is opening one's economy for the global competition. गोटे देशर अर्थनीति को विश्व प्रतियोगिता पई मुक्त करिबा को हमें ग्लोबलाइजेशन बा जगतीकरण बोली कहू. एवं ग्लोबलाइजेशन हवा परे पॉवर्टी हमें एटा को एक्सेप्ट करजु कोन पई एलपीजी पॉलिसी ना टू इरेडिकेट पॉवर्टी. हमें केमती पॉवर्टी इरेडिकेट करिबा सेति पई हमें एटा को एक्सेप्ट करजु. सो ग्लोबलाइजेशन माध्यम रे हमें भाबुचु भारत रे poverty, but it is also possible that after globalization the poverty in India became able to reduce to some extent, but it is unable to eradicate poverty as expected. जबरे आशा करो तो सही हिसाब रे करनी. Under economic globalization, many countries have opened up their economy to free flow of finance, capital, technology and goods. India also does that. ग्लोबलाइजेशन पॉलिसी अंदर रे विश्वर सब देश गुड़िक निजर अर्थनीति को निजर फाइनेंस, कैपिटल, टेक्नोलॉजी एवं गुड्स रे तो मुक्त बाजार को मुक्त. So market became open. Market became and the market became linked with the global market. करा जाए. और these are established many of the traditional industries led to employment of productive resources. So in countries having a democratic policy like India, the conflict and contradiction, the process of globalization is strong and pursue their own demand and agenda. So urbanization has not the process of urbanization under globalization. हमारा जो अर्बनाइजेशन होची से अर्बनाइजेशन ता हेल्दी है. यदि अर्बनाइजेशन हेल्दी हबो ताले सेटी ग्लोबलाइजेशन माने पॉवर्टी रिडक्शन चले परबो. तो बैलेंस्ड has not done much to promote balanced regional development in India. Urbanization ଯଦି healthy ନ ହେବ ସବୁଆଡ଼େ ୟୁନିଫର୍ମ urbanization ହେବ ନାହିଁ ତାହେଲେ ଏଇଟା regional development in India ରେ ରହିବ ନାହିଁ. So after liberalization, the new industries have often been located in the villages and small towns around the big cities. बड़ा बड़ा सहर पाखापाखि जो गाँ सब रहा सेठी सब लिबरालाइजेशन फल सेठी सब नुआ नुआ इंडस्ट्री बसला नुआ नुआ सहर गढ़ुला इजी कहीं ना सेठी सब जमी कमी सहर मिला सहर रे सहजरे जमी मिलेनी तेणु एडजासेंट एरिया रे रूरल एरिया रे एडजासेंट सिटी एडजासेंट रूरल एरिया रे जमी सहजरे मिलला तेणु सेठी मध्य हला फल कोन हला ना सेठी डिजेनरेशन हे गला द डिजेनरेशन of peripheralization. The periphery अंचलर मध्य डिजेनरेशन का तार ये खराब चला कौन परिवेश खराब चला फिर ग्लोबलाइजेशन on the one hand promote करुची poverty को reduce करिबारे सफल हेची at the same time it is also able to increase the gap between the rich and the poor. एटा गरीब और धनी का भितरे gap मध्य बहुत बड़े in the changing policy perspective on poverty, yet we are unable to solve the problem of poverty. So there is a poverty has been viewed a changing perspective, policy perspective on poverty. Our policy poverty upare changing policy perspective kon diya. So poverty in India has generally been seen as a problem of rural areas at the policy making level. But as has been the case in many less developed countries, हमें साधारणतः हम policy धारक माने policy करंती नीति धारक माने सेମାନଙ୍କ मंत्र बताना रही they have conception that भारत रे जो दारिद्रता सेटा गोटे rural area problem तो ग्रामांचल रे poverty. Official statistics also supported this view till 1980. But 80 ପରେ ए कंडीशन में चेंज है वर्तमान मध्य सिग्निफिकेंटली कंडीशन चेंज है the gap between the two poverty levels narrowed so much that the expert group on poverty measurement set up by the planning commission reported a higher figure for urban than rural. Urban poverty अधिक होती rural poverty कम होती. In the 1990s though urban poverty levels have once again dipped below rural poverty. लबे बेलू को फुंड के रूरल पॉवर्टी तळु को अर्बन पॉवर्टी खसी गला किंतु लेटर ऑन फर्दर इट इंक्रीजेस तापर पुन मध्य अधिक अर्बन पॉवर्टी अनेक जगह रूरल पॉवर्टी रो प्रभाव को जाउ. सो इन मेनी इंडियन स्टेट्स अर्बन पॉवर्टी इज ड्यू टू लैक ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट. अनेक इंडियन स्टेट रे पॉवर्टी अर्बन पॉवर्टी रो कारण के लैक ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इन अदर्स ड्यू टू नेचर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इटसेल्फ केतक लैक ऑफ डेवलपमेंट पे होची केतक जारे डेवलपमेंट रो प्रकृति इंडिया डेवलपमेंट प्रकृति जो मध्य हमरो पॉवर्टी कंडीशन अर्बन रे होची आज तेनु इट रिक्वायर ए कॉम्प्लेक्स पॉवर्टी अर्बन पॉवर्टी बिकम ए कॉम्प्लेक्स फेनोमेना requiring serious attention both from the administrators, policy makers, planners, politicians and all those. So the poverty concept has changed. Then we will discuss about the slums. Next urban problem, next important urban issue is about slums. The next issue is the slum. Now, slum is basically an area. In every urban people is very closely, everyone knows what is slum because there is not a single city in the world where we can find slum. Everywhere. Maybe it is underdeveloped, developed, or semi-developed cities, metropolis, megapolis, geopolis, whatever, wherever you found, slum is always being attached with the urban society. So slum is basically an area where people live in highly congested conditions without any basic amenities of life. And without basic amenities, the people suffer from a variety of problems. Variety of problems there. Variety of problems. So people slum refer to area in urban center. Now urban center ବା ସହରରେ ଗୋଟେ ଅଞ୍ଚଳକୁ ଯୋଉଠି low income groups or migrants live in a unhealthy condition, big amenities, water, sanitation, no sanitation is there, lack of water, electricity, lack of access to health, home to different diseases. ଏଇଭଳି ଏକ condition ବାସ କରନ୍ତି ସେ ଅଞ୍ଚଳକୁ ଆମେ slum ବୋଲିକି କହିଥାଉ. So slums has been characterized by various like unhealthy house condition, overcrowding nature, congestion, poor sanitation, and lack of health, access to health, apathy and social isolation. They are isolated from the general urban society. Then deviant behavior, the culture of slum. These सब गुड़ाक होची हमारा the characteristic of slums. The slum perform a useful function for certain social groups. কিন্তু at the same time, যদিও slums is very bad and it casts shadows on the urban case, but still, slum is useful for some persons. It has some useful functions for certain social groups like poor and migrant workers. The slums, but the slums also had its long history. Slum as a social problem has a long history because in ancient Roman cities, Jewish ghettos, British slums, 19th century in US before to World War I, in America, everywhere the slum exists. So there is a famous example of slum is the Mumbai, the rich city in India. There is a great, it is also known for a high slum dwellers. There is a slum area which is known as Dharavi slum, which is known as Dharavi slum of Mumbai. It is a case study. It is a very important slum area where the pitiable people suffer from a very close, very heinous life. Most affluent nations of the world also have slums. Ọনেক affluent society মধ্যে slums আছে. The slum offends our eyes, the nose, and complacency, and our conscience, but it exists all the same. এসব সত্ত্বেই that our slum exists. What is the nature of slum? So, nature of slum may be characterized. Slum may be characterized in an area of substandard housing conditions within a city. गोटे सहर रे जोटी substandard housing condition थिबो एवं poor लोक माने बास करथुबे with all kinds of lack of civic amenities and ताकू slum बोली करो. तेनो slum is a area in urban center. It is being apparently derived from the slumber. The word slum has been derived from the word slumber, which means which presumed to be sleepy and quiet. Sleepy and quiet. Slum, and the slums constitute the most important and persistent problem of urban life. Every urban life, slum constitutes the most important persistent problem. They are often considered to be the source of crime and delinquency. Next, slum happens it also that in slum crime and delinquency, illness and death, some disease, some of all shapes and types and forms exist in very different countries of the world. So slum, there is a disagreement over whether people make slum or slum makes people. There is a disagreement. There is a competition among intelligentsia that whether people make slum or slums make people. substandard housing condition due to social standard in a certain group or vice versa. The slum is a complex product of the urban center. It is a complex product of many products, and, and it is a social phenomenon. And the poverty is the foremost one condition that and this slum condition. Slum condition, some of the important condition of the poverty. Hmm. So lack of basic infrastructure. Slum re lack of basic infrastructure of the work. So there are main three types of slum. Three प्रकार slum of the पाऊ. गोटे है original slum. It is an area which from the very beginning consisted of unsuitable buildings. Original slum. Then second type of slum is slum consists of a slum created by the departure of the middle class families. Middle class families departure to other areas, to other sections, or other subsequent deterioration of the area. The area deterioration away slum. It is slum basically the third slum is the most unpleasant type of slum, which is mainly a phenomenon of transition. तृतीय प्रकार slum टा गोटे phenomenon of transition भावे विचार करा जाए. Once the area around a main business district has become blighted, physical and social deterioration spreads the place. The blighted area टा सेठी physical और social deterioration हबो एवं that this kind of slum तापरे सेटा गोटे slum रे हबो. It are the types of slum. So I mean there are different characteristics of slum. I mean characteristics of slums apply kariba. What are the condition analysis kariba? The first characteristic of slum is that is an area in slum का प्रथम परिचय होती है एटा शहर रा गोटे अंचल. It may be the periphery or maybe at the undeveloped area, inaccessible area. So it was slum बोले हमें को. So it is one it is area in the city. The second characteristic of slum is housing condition. Pitiable housing condition is the second important characteristic of slum. The people who live in slums, in the physical condition of these houses are very bad and unhealthy housing, low housing standard. And in small room, a number of people are living. Crowded housing, neglected, deteriorated, and obsolete, inadequate housing condition. Is सब अवस्था रे slum बोले हमें पता. Then third condition features of slum is poverty. Poverty is an essential condition of low income. Poverty due to different factors, but poverty the people who live in these slums are only poverty stricken people. तो गरीब लोग माने ही सेठी बास करे. It is the labor or migrants. New migrants from rural or other areas. Migrants population or poor population, poverty-stricken population are living in these areas. So then another is overcrowding congestion. Overcrowding congestion. When the प्रकार overcrowding congestion, I mean, people congestion stage रे करते overcrowding. अधिक परिमाण रे जनगहली सेठी देखा को मिले. Overcrowding. A slum may be an area which is overcrowded with building or building overcrowded with people or both. Building overcrowded with people or people overcrowded with the building or area or thatched houses. ये सब overcrowding congestion. There is number of people in one room. But a room में there are अनेक लोग रहते हुए एवरी एक condition को हमें overcrowding and congestion. Then neighborhood facilities. The poor slum is invariably associated with poor facilities and community services. That is, community services is very less. Community services is very less. The community services try 9 बजे try. Community facilities किसी 9. So poor sanitation and health. In slum, there is health condition is very poor. and sanitation was completely absent for this one. There is no drainage system, no sanitation, no cleanness. Dirty on places as well, largely defined as a slum area. Deterioration, filthy smells, all these are characteristics of poor sanitation. Then deviant behavior. Another characteristic feature of slum is deviant behavior. The people, most of the crime and deviant behavior are the crime criminals. Criminals are also different kind of due to their poverty. ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ପୂର୍ବରେ ପଢୁଥିଲେ poverty କେମିତି ଗୋଟେ peculiar deviant behavior ମଣିଷ ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରେ. So accordingly, that due to their poverty, the people are in a very poor condition. Their poverty sometimes, as you know, there is a saying that "Urukitam king no karoti papam." On healthy condition, workout nature, lack of access to education, bad peers, all this led to a criminal behavior, deviant behavior, system among the uh, slum area. Besides, there is a culture of the slum. That means it is a way of life. So, slum differ widely with respect to the social organization of their inhabitants. Slum प्रत्येक slum ର ଗୋଟେ way of life ଅଛି जोटा कि अन्य slum ଠାରୁ differ because ସେମାନେ inhabitant ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ social organization ରେ ଗୋଟେ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ପ୍ରକାର social organization build करे. There is slum in which inhabitants are strangers to one another. slum ରେ ବାସ କରୁଥିବା ଲୋକମାନେ ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ଅନ୍ୟ ପାଇଁ ଅଜଣା ବା ଅଚିହ୍ନା. So ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ୱାଇଡ୍ ଆକ୍ୟୁଟାନ୍ସ ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଦେଖାଯିବ slum inhabited by immigrants groups may have a firm social organization. So culture might depend on the system of symbol of meaning or the normative standards. So slum has a culture of its own. प्रत्येक slum ର ତାର ଏକ ନିଜସ୍ୱ ସଂସ୍କୃତି ଅଛି ଯୋଉଟା କି କୁହାଯାଏ slum culture. ସେ ଯୋଉ ନିଜ ସଂସ୍କୃତି ଅଛି, this culture is the way of life. This way of life is passed from generation to generation with the own rational structure and ଗୋଟେ slum ର ଲୋକମାନେ acquire କରିଛନ୍ତି ସେଟା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଇଏକୁ shift କରିଥାଏ. These cultural patterns are typical of this slum way of life. So then apathy and social isolation. Another feature or characteristic of slum. slum ର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଲକ୍ଷଣ ହେଉଛି apathy ଆଉ social isolation. Every slum is isolated from the modern city or socially isolated from others, partially by choice and partly by location. So every local and the people also themselves isolate themselves from the. They can mix with the general people of the city. Their location. Sometimes the slums location is such a that naturally they are at the periphery of the urban center. So they located in such a situation that they remain isolated. Because of the low status, low income, they can mix with the other people. As a result, they feel isolated. And non-slum dwellers often associate the physical appearance and difficult to live condition of the slum with the belief in the natural inferiority. ତାଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଜେନେରାଲ ଲୋକମାନେ ମିଶନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ ଗୋଟେ ନ୍ୟାଚୁରାଲ ଇନ୍ଫିରିୟରିଟି କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ଆସେ in slums. This reaction has important consequences in the social isolation of slum dwellers, their exclusion. So naturally, town ଭିତରେ ରହିକିରି ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମାନେ ଗୋଟେ excluded life lead କରନ୍ତି. They are isolated, and the people of the city as well as the government city administration also gives shows an apathetic attitude toward this slum without caring for their amenities, civic amenities, water, clean water. So this sanitation is less apathy. So that's why apathy and isolation is also another characteristic of slums. So the functions of the slums. So slum, though has many, no doubt, has many defects, has many problems, but there are certain functions. It performs some functions for the people who live in. So slums have met various needs and have served several useful functions for its inhabitants or residents. The most some of the common functions of the slum have been to provide housing for the lowest income group. First functions of the slum Uchi, it provides house or shelter to the um, migrant labor, the poor, poverty-stricken people, low-income group in the city. The slum also serves as a place where group living and association on the basis of village, region, ethnic group may develop. Slum ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ function ହେଉଛି that ଗୋଟେ group living. The people of diverse culture, diverse religion, diverse language, diverse area are also come together and live together. ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଭଲ ଭାଇଚାରା ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରେ slum ମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ. That is also function. So, another Professor White remarked that another function of slum is that organized way of life offered a self-satisfaction to the slum dwellers. The organized way of life, it is संगठित जीवन शैली, संगठित जीवन शैली प्रोवाइड करे slum यार inhabitant मानकु जोटा कि सेମାନଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ satisfaction प्रदान करे. So slum also function as a like a school. Slum itself is also a school. The people, inhabitants of the slum, learn many things from this. They educated, the new entrants to the slum are educated newcomers. When a newcomer asks slum को समान को यह educate करे एवं it gives shares different experiences of slum life, experience करती एवं they know the hardships of life in a urban city setup में experience करती. So it a school इतना वो एक school भरी मतलब काम करे. It gives them a place to become oriented upon arrival to find first jobs and to learn way of city life. It teaches its new entrants the way of city life, how to adjust with city life, how to live in pitiable condition. ये सब वो experience कराए from that मतलब ये function करे function as a function of school. Another function of slum is that it provides a place of living to those who prefer to live in anonymous life, like migratory workers, criminals, chronic alcoholic, workers in illegal enterprises. ଏମାନଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ rest set ପ୍ରଦାନ କରେ slum. Slum ଏତେ ଗୋଟେ function ମଧ୍ୟ କରେ. At the same time, slum ମଧ୍ୟ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ function କରେ. It also question our conscience. ଏଇଟା ଆମର civic ବା civilized conscience को ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଚିହ୍ନ ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରେ. It compels us to act and to make solution for this problem. ଏଇଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ teaching ଭଳିଆ କାମ କରେ. So these are the functions of slum. So there are different Indian context, the socio-economic profile of Indian slum. Indian slum ର socio-economic profile. So that social problems, slum is a area in township where the people are facing a number of socio-economic problems. So that's why Indian context the socio-economic profile of the slums ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଆମେ ପ୍ରଥମ ଜିନିଷ ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା ଦରକାର ଯେ how much area of population live in slums, କେତେ ଲୋକ urban center କେତେ ଲୋକ ଏଠି ବାସ କରନ୍ତି. An analysis of the national sample survey data reveals that at about 15% of the urban households resides in slum area. ଗୋଟେ ସହରର 15% household ପ୍ରାୟତଃ slum ରେ ବାସ କରନ୍ତି. ତେଣୁ the slums constitute an extremely heterogeneous category. The socio-economic, there is hetero socio-economic दृष्टिରୁ यार nature होची the heterogeneous. It is heterogeneous in nature. The physical structure can be described as kacha in case of at about more than 35% of slums are living in kacha houses. How केतेक semi paka house, that is just केतेक रहले semi paka house. Semi paka house, that means they are building semi paka house in these slums. So this implies that more than 30% of the slums are predominantly paka structure, and 87% of the paka slums have access to water. केतेक water अछि. So केतेक क्षेत्र some water provisions are also being made. In some cities the supply water has been provided by the tap water provided to the slum people, and in some cases there is supply water, daily vehicle supply water has been provided to the slum area. But all the slum people are not getting clean water or clean drinking water. At about to maximum up to 60 to 65% population are getting these facilities. That the kacha dwelling of the unit of these kacha houses, the kacha houses they suffer from different kinds of health hazards. Health hazards due to lack of sanitation, they suffer from various health hazards. So it creates a slum living, defective arrangement. Slum tara jo that is out to defective city planning through slum development. It has created a serious problem of the urban development. The deficiency are more serious for urban poor due to inequality in the access to those amenities. The national sample survey in its various rounds pertaining to slum condition, access to housing and other amenities provide interesting insight into the interdependencies between poverty and quality of life. The NSS for the first time 1993 in its 49th round provided information on the quality of housing and availability of basic amenities by the canvassing a uniform definition of slum 21 states and the union territory. The coverage was much better than that of previous round. So about 90% of the slums are noted to be located in residential areas, while only 5% are in industrial areas. Jette slums achi amara cities guda kare tavitru pakhabaki 90% 90 slums located in industrial area re 5% matra hochi, baki sabu hochi in the city areas. Then the distance from Motable Road in case of 98% slum is less than 1 kilometer. The corresponding figure in primary school is 90%. Primary school access thiba 90% लोगों को primary school access अच्छी. It is also there is a eviction problem. Slum, there is a very frequent eviction problem always being associated with another socio-economic profile of this slum is that eviction problem. Some of these slums are built in private. Some of the slum are also built in the government, and the government for the purpose of roadside, government places, various government for its new project or for road expansion. These slum dwellers are being evicted from their place. अनेक समय से मन तांको स्थानरू evict होंती, सेटा गुटे मतलब problem है. Increasing land values and other factors. 62% of the slum are located on the public land, railways the land, and 30% of the total slum located in the public land. Actually, slum 13% of the slums are located in public land. Surprisingly, more than 53% of these are on land of the municipal bodies. 50%, more than 50, or at about 53% of slums are in municipal land, municipality area. So these are the breaking their eviction and re-establishment of another slum area. All these are a very peculiar problem that has been associated with the socio-economic profile of the Indian slums. And so another access to housing and basic amenities is a substantial problem of the slums. They can't get drinking water, majority drinking water, the housing problem, drainage is also a problem. Major problem is from drainage. Since about to ଯେହେତु ସେମାନେ କଚ୍ଚା ଘରେ ସବୁ ବାସ କରୁଛନ୍ତି open system, they use open system latin. This problem is faced by non-slum areas also. Percentage figure is very alarming. The majority of the slums are suffer from a variety of problem of drainage and they use open defecation system. They also use open latin. There is no provision of drainage. So this makes their area more filthy and untolerable, unable to live in these conditions. So these are very different. Then come to the different approach to solve slum problem. Slum problem. There are 4 approaches basically. There are 4 approaches by which you can study the slum area problems. Slum area को पढ़िया पे हम पढ़े कहते हैं approach. There are certain approaches, 4 approaches. गोटे होती हमें traditional welfare approach. The slum, to study the slum, we can study through 4 approaches. गोटे होती traditional welfare approach. The second approach is developmental approach. The third approach is the Marxist or socialist approach, and the 4 is humanitarian or humanistic approach. ए चारिटा दृष्टिकोणरू आमे आलोचना करि परिबा approach the slum. Some experts advocate the policy of slum clearance, while others believe providing welfare service to slum dwellers. There is a conflict between intelligence. So some intelligence argues, ketaka Buddhism and argue currently that Sararu slum को हटे दवा, slum रू Sararu slum को clear कर दवा. Others believe that no, welfare services should be provided to the slum because slum dwellers are also part of the town dwellers. So as from humanitarian ground, they must be provided with the all welfare services. तांको सब welfare services provide करें. ये दुईटी प्रकार. Till others stress providing greater economic opportunity for slum. How that का कौन थी? No, as they live in duty basket में बस करने तो ସେମାନେ पे better economic opportunity आ जाए. However, এই দৃষ্টিকোণରୁ ଆମେ তিনটা বিচারধারা, these 3 conceptions generally prevail among the intelligentsia or the scholars. The first is we should wipe out the slums. We should clear slums from the urban area. Second, we should do some welfare measure for the same. And third, that must be economic betterment of this slum dwellers. So the traditional welfare approach advocated the policy of destroying the slums, tearing it down physically, and development with subsidized housing. Total हटेई दबो एवं ताको स्ट्रक्चर जोटा ट्रेडिशनल वेलफेयर अप्रोच टोटल हटेई दबो एवं ताको सब्सिडाइज हाउसिंग, ताको सब्सिडाइज हाउस रेंट रे, सब्सिडाइज रेंट रे ताको हाउसिंग प्रोवाइड करबा. एटा कोची ट्रेडिशनल वेलफेयर. It is believed that providing welfare services to slum dwellers is the best way to bring about changes in slum areas and to solve the slum problem. So slum area or slum problem to solve the best way होची to provide welfare services to these slum dwellers and changes in slum area to solve various slum problem. This approach to slum problem through clearance and redevelopment with subsidized housing को मध्यम कैटेगरी को क्रिटिसाइज करूछंती इन एप्लीकेशन के एटा को अप्लाई करिया very कष्ट. As the cities are underdeveloped nations, raise their standards, the poor people from rural area flock to the city slums. लोक माने rural area रे लोकंकर it was also assumed that लोकमाने unnecessarily creating slums because they have rural area, they have house and the agricultural lands of the rural areas, but they move to slums and they unnecessarily create crowding condition in the slums. The subsidized housing project will make cities more attractive, and the number of poor rural people arriving in cities will become handle. ତେଣୁ ଯଦି ଏମିତି ସବସିଡାଇଜ ହାଉସିଂ ଦିଆଯିବ କେତେ କ୍ରିଟିସାଇଜ କରନ୍ତି ଯେ ଯଦି କାହିଁକି ତାଙ୍କୁ ସବସିଡାଇଜ ହାଉସ ଦବା ସ୍ଲମ୍ ଡ୍ୱେଲର କାହିଁକିନା ସ୍ଲମ୍ ଡ୍ୱେଲର ମାନେ ତ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଆସିନାହାନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଆସିଛନ୍ତି କୋଉଠୁ ତାଙ୍କର ଗାଁ ଅଛି ତାଙ୍କର ଘର ଅଛି ସେଠି ଚାଷ ଜମି ଅଛି ସେଠି ତାଙ୍କର ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ସେମାନେ ଯଦି ତାଙ୍କୁ ୱାନ୍ସ ଘର ଦେବାକୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବ ସରକାର ଟାଉନରେ ସବସିଡାଇଜ ଦବ ତାହେଲେ ଆହୁରି ଗାଁରୁ ଲୋକ ପଳେଇ ଆସି ଘର ପାଇବା ଆଶାରେ ସେଠି ସ୍ଲମ୍ ପପୁଲେସନ ବଢିବ ଆହୁରି ସ୍ଲମ୍ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହବ ତେଣୁ ତାକୁ ହ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡେଲ କରିବା ଆହୁରି କଷ୍ଟକର ହେଇପାରିବ ଏବଂ କ୍ରିଟିସାଇଜ କରିପାରିବ So the only way to reduce urban slum area is to raise rural living standard to those of a city. तेणु बरं स्लम कमिया पहले हम कौन करी पूरा पड़ो ना तार सॉल्यूशन होची जे रूरल एरिया को डेवलप करबा सिटी भलिया एवं आगोन करबा ना रूरल लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोवाइड करबा आर दैट रूरल एरिया ते रूरल एरिया तुम एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोवाइड करले स्लम कंडीशन ता बेटर होते तेणु slum clearance is not exclusively a matter of replacing standardized housing with a new plan slum. खाली जे घर कर देले slum समस्या समाधान हो जीवो तार सेटा नुहे तार मेंटेनेंस ऑफ लिवरहुड इज एसेंशियल अनेक गुडे जिंस आवश्यक है हाउस मैनेजमेंट एनवायरनमेंट लीड एगुडा सब पर्सनल हाइजीन मेंटेनेंस अनेक गुडे समस्या रही सब करबो पड़े so then besides there are another question that measures to bring about improvement in economic condition will be of great value to some people. How could the coaching nice so condition nice as they live in to bring improvement in their economic condition. Economic अर्थनैतिक स्थिति जमे हमें उन्नति आनी परिबा ताले सेटा तंग पई बहुत उपकार हबो एवं सेटा कोन तंगु करि परिबा प्रोवाइड करि परिबा हमें ना एडिक्वेट वेज गारंटेड मिनिमम इनकम एगुडा सब तंगु जदी एक्सेस टू इनएक्सपेंसिबल क्रेडिट में एक्सेस रहइबो डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी एम्प्लॉयमेंट पॉलिसी program to train and retrain the youth and adults and to make the slum people more and get better employment as is but there is another aspect of this welfare approach to slum problem. Geeta Dewan Burma has highlighted this issue in her work Slumming India. She argued that the real problem is not the pervasive urban squalor that offend us all, but rather the moral and intellectual bankruptcy that sustain it. You know, इजोटा slum dweller sustain करिबार बा slumming India तंका पुस्तक रे से लिखिसंती से आर्गु करचंती the moral and intellectual bankruptcy जोगु हमर slum dweller ता शहर रे slum तिष्ठि हो For the urban poor, minimal landless option, outreach services instead of hospital, city education instead of poor, slum upgrading the place of housing, all have become very fair. So city, if you go to slums, slum को जीवो, समानंगर economic condition करो, you can find the motorcycle, you can find TV antennas, all the modern facilities are available there. They have vehicles. The slum dwellers, many slum dwellers died in vehicles. But they can take rented houses. Into say rented houses, can it become a fashionable to live in slums and enjoy to living without any rent and enjoy people and government to enjoy to receive government facilities as provided by time to time by the government. Government जो मझे मझे provide तो time दबु, तंकर सुविधा सब सरकारी सुविधा नबु, सरकार सेठी बास करिबु एवं comfort जीवन जापन करिबु. एटा गुटे मध्य कंटिन्यूएशन होची स्लम एवर फैशनेबल हेगलानी तेनो स्लम रे बास करिवा गोटे फैशनेबल हेगलानी बोली से कहउछन then urban community development offers a new development approach to some of the problems of urban areas in general and its slum in particular. It involves two fundamental ideas: the development of the effective community feeling within an urban context and the development of self-help and citizen participation. Self-help as self-individual initiative seeking, community integration and change. So self-help माध्यमरे सेगुडा सबु मतलब किछि परिमाणरे this approach to the problem of the city slum through urban community development involves the following elements: creation of a sense of social cohesion, stimulation by outside agencies where initiative for self-help is lacking, identification and development of local leadership develop करेबा ये सब गुडा को जदी हबो coordination of city services to meet neighborhood needs of problems तांकर प्रॉब्लम गुडा को सॉल्व करिया पई हमर neighborhood development करिया provision of training to the slum dwellers ये सब जदी करा जाय परिबो ताले से कंडीशन को किछ प्रकार हमें able to solve. Then a case study of Dharavi slum. You might have listened the name of Dharavi. Dharavi होची गोटे एशिया रो सबुटु बृहत slum and at about at presently there are more than 70 lakhs people are living in this Dharavi basti, the Dharavi slum. Bombay ro Dharavi slum होची एशिया रो सबुटु बड़ slum एवं सेठी 70 लाख रो ऊर्ध्व लोक प्राय बास करछन वर्तमान तेनु तार उटे केस स्टडी हमें अध्ययन कर परिबा. The humanitarian approach to the problem of slum basically highlights the trend of the Indian spirit over poverty. In his famous case study rediscovering Dharavi Mumbai slum, कल्पना शर्मा नामक जने कलार 2000 मसिया रे से गोटे केस स्टडी करिसंती ए धारावी स्लम उपरे rediscovering Dharavi Mumbai slum माने धारावी को rediscover करबा so challenges the conventional notion of a slum के स्लम विषय हमर आगुर जो धारणा थिला ताकू से चैलेंज करूचंती तांको अनुसार Dharavi is much more than a cold statistics. Dharavi is much more than a cold statistics. जो statistics हम पकड़ अच्छी regarding slum तातो एटा बहुत कुछ अधिका but made it special are the extraordinary people who live there. ए Dharavi बस्ती रे अनेक extraordinary people हमें भाबुन जे केवल गरीब असहाय criminal ए माने slum रे बास करछंती अनेक extraordinary people are also living in slums. People are living in the story of Dharavi illustrates that the most important issue is the security of tenure. If the poor people have that, they will generate the funds and find ways to improve their own structure. Nijara structure madhya semane goduchandi. Once the government launched program that guaranteed people security, they are willing to redevelop their areas or upgrade their dwellings. Upgrade without aid from the government. सरकार साहाय्य बिना मध्य सेमाने ता भीतर तांकर जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्क घर कर होचन ताको अपग्रेड मध्य one can see how people have successfully replaced thatched bamboo with the brick and mortar. ए बस्ती रे जो सब घर थला बाउंस बा thatched house सेटा सब इटा और सीमेंट रा घर होई होची. The process and manner in which slums are reorganized or redeveloped have to be done in the interest of the people involved. तेणु जदि आमे तांकर जो विकास पई किछि करिबा ताले तांको नेकी से लोकमानकु संगरे नेकी आमे तांकर कंडीशन कंसेंट नेकी जो प्रकार विकास करि परिबा. NGO organization working with urban poor have long urged that women in particular must be involved in the planning and design or redevelopment small sector. तेणु बहुत NGO डिमांड करछन्ती जे NGO रे अनेक वुमेन मध्ये अछन्ती तेणु जते बेले आमे तांको रिडिस्कवर करिया बा ताको रिडिजाइन करिया को चाहूचे आमे वुमेन माननको मध्ये हिसाब नबा तांकर महत्व को इन्वॉल्व करिया दरकार. तेणु आमे रिडिजाइन करिया को बा रिडेवलप करिया को स्लम सेटल करिया को चाहूचे तेणु आमे से वुमेन माननको मत नबा दरकार. So this is the economic determinant that culminated in the creation of existing slums are still at work. वर्तमान मध्य ए धारावी आउट होची देयर आर ऑलरेडी फ्यू एग्जांपल्स लाइक राजीव गांधी कोऑपरेटिव कल्याणी इन कल्याणीवाड़ी सेठी केते कोऑपरेटिव्स मध्य काम करती वी शो दैट it is what is possible when a community is consulted on all aspects of slum development. The mainstream institution finance have rarely considered the needs of the poor. While Maharashtra government's plan to provide free housing to slum dwellers is commendable because it recognizes the investment that most of them have already made in their housing. किंतु से जो लोक माने स्लम डोर बासुचंती बास करचंती सेमाने तांको जो घरे रहउचंती सेतिरे मध्ये सेमाने ह्यूज इन्वेस्टमेंट करचंती तेनो फाइनेंस सिस्टम can aid the poor in their housing needs. Many slum dwellers would be prepared to part the way in financing their housing. तेणु सेमान को किसी पैसा देले किसी स्लम डवेलर मध्ये बाहर आसी घर ए करी नहीं पारिबे ए सब कंडीशन are also that is the case study. Another thing is that धारावी एक्सपांड करिवार आ गोटे इंपोर्टेंट कारण होची स्टडी रो जना पड़ला जे people living in Dharavi are find work in Bombay city. Dharavi flourish करती because the slum dwellers find variety of work. They always find engagement. This attract people because they embody the spirit of enterprise and survival in the face of tremendous obstacles. जेतु लोक माने सेठी एंगेजमेंट पाउचंती तेनो सबु बाधा सत्वे सेमाने सेठी पढुचंती एवं धारावीर पॉपुलेशन बढ़िबारे लागि. Architects, engineers and urban planners think of structure but do not address the life of people. सेमाने चिंता करूचंती घर विषय किंतु तंकर लाइफ पर्सू हाउ लाइफ ऑफ द स्लम dwellers of Dharavi will be developed से विषय सेमाने चिंता करना. तेणु लाइवलीहुड एंड शेल्टर तेणु जीवन एवं शेल्टर निरापत्ता ये उभय को कंसीडर करि परले से ता प्रॉब्लम को किसी परिमाण में सॉल्व करि परबा. बिसाइड्स द नेक्स्ट यूनिट विल डील विथ द एनवायरनमेंट एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. Environment and infrastructure, urban environment and infrastructure. So in this unit, we study that India is the second largest populous country in the world with current population of more than 130 crores. 35 कोटी पाखापाखि लोक हमर आइगरणी. So India's urban population is larger than the total population of many small countries. So जेतु India population is more than 135 crores and the total urban population of India also exceeds many countries, many developed countries, many small countries of the world like France, German. तांकर population थारु हमारा urban population मध्ये तांकर थारु बहुत अधिक. तेणु it requires that there must be, so we must understand, look into the urban environment and infrastructure. Unless a huge portion of the population will be neglected and they will suffer from different kinds of problems. However, urbanization and urban environment in India. Urbanization and urban environment. The level of urbanization in terms of the proportion of urban population to total population is low in India. So level of urbanization is low. Urbanization is increasing in India, but level of urbanization means the urban population to the total population. से हिसाब रे वर्ल्ड लेवल ले हमरो कम अछि, urbanization level हमरो लो. तेनु the level of urbanization in India is low, but urban population in absolute term is very high. टोटल पे देखियो बोले भारत रे शहरी जनसंख्या बहुत अधिक किंतु लेवल ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लो. लेवल ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हम केमति डिसाइड करबा ना अर्बन पॉपुलेशन टू परसेंटेज ऑफ पॉपुलेशन ऑफ अर्बन पॉपुलेशन टू टोटल समुदाय जनसंख्या तुलन रे गोटे शहर रे जेति लोक पास करचंती सेही बेसिस रे हम लेवल ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को स्थिर करू. तो एब्सोल्यूट टर्म रे our India रे urban population बहुत अधिक. Most of the urban population is concentrated in class 1 cities, accounting for 65% of the total urban population, and these cities are expanding at a faster rate than average population. ତେଣୁ urban population ଟା ଆମର class 1 cities ରେ ବେଶୀ ଅଛି. ଆମର ବମ୍ବେ, କଲକାତା, ମାଡ୍ରାସ ଏଇଭଳି ଯୋଉ ବଡ଼ ବଡ଼ class 1 cities ସବୁ ଆହୁରି ଅଛି, ସେଇ ସବୁ class 1 cities ରେ population ଟା ବହୁତ ଅଛି ଏବଂ major population urban population major population are living in these class 1 cities. ଏବଂ ଆମର ଆହୁରି ମଧ୍ୟ ଦେଖାଯାଉଛି ଯେ ଭାରତରେ million plus cities ବା metropolitan cities ସବୁ expand କରୁଛି very rapidly. They are expanding very rapidly. Their numbers have constantly increased from 12 in 1981, 23 in 91 and 35 in the ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସୁଦ୍ଧା ଆମର 2001 ରେ ସୁଦ୍ଧା ଆମର 35ଟା million plus city ଥିଲା. The total population of these metros accounts for nearly 1/3 of the total population and 10.5% of India's total population. At about 2011 population अनुसारे हमारा पाखापाखी 11 point something, or that is पाखापाखी 12% population are living in these cities. Even at about besides 50% of the urban population of this metro live in the 5 giant conglomerates, that is Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi, Chennai and Bangalore. In Mumbai there is more than 17 million, in Kolkata it is more than 15 million, in Delhi it is more than 13 million, Chennai it is more than 7 million, and Bangalore it is more than 6 million. So the population of these cities grew by 52% higher than the growth of urban population in India. But compared to the last decade, the pace of metropolitanization has slowed down. So the pace of metropolitanization slow, and the 12 new cities grew at faster rate than the existing cities. And Surat in Gujarat has shown a very higher growth rate than other cities. So rapid urbanization marked by population explosion in the Indian cities can be largely attributed to the large scale rural to urban migration. Amara basically जो urban population बढ़ुची, rapid urbanization होता मूल कारण होती rural urban migration. Due to the uncontrolled urbanization in India, the quality of life is under threat in the big cities. Amara urbanization ta uncontrolled, most of the cases re unplanned or haphazard. So that leads to a quality of life is at stake, under threat, and creating a environmental degradation has been very occurring in almost in every city. प्रत्येक शहर रे environmental degradation घटुची due to unplanned growth of urbanization. Besides, there is urban poverty, socio-cultural disparity, social environment of the city also under threat. खाली जे environment, natural environment of the city is under threat. The social environment of the city, हमें city रो environment को तीन भाग में व्यक्त कर परिया. उधर social, natural environment, cultural environment. एक तीनटा the natural environment are being polluted due to excess population growth, then industrialization, use of more vehicles. ये सब जो हमें natural environment is declining. At the same time, due to rapid population explosion, social environment of the city is also under threat. हमारा social urban environment मतलब वर्तमान शहर social environment मतलब cultural environment मतलब हमारा multiculturalism सगरे हमें the bad culture, pop culture, the culture of variety of these cultural life is also at stake in the urban cities. Then social environment, the culture of these are certain cultural environment has also been polluted. Social environment is polluted in the cities. So social environment cities on account of peculiar problem like unchecked migration, illegal settlement, diverse socio-cultural disparity, uneven distribution of income, ଏସବୁ are also increased disparity, juveniles, crime, and then living, all this pressure of existing physical and social infrastructure, ଏସବୁ ଗୁଡ଼ାକ are responsible for the social polluting our social environment. So there is, besides, there are the environment of urban areas, large cities have been developed rapidly due to urban local bodies. Urban local bodies, those who are working, they are not functioning properly, or they are not delivering better services to the people. That is also cause for which urban condition is urban social condition, urban environment has also been polluted. These are the these local bodies fail to provide. These local bodies fail to provide the basic amenities to the growing population. That lead to our natural creating drainage blockage, drain blockage on a number of problems have been created due to this urban lack of drainage or drainage jam. All these create a polluting our environment. Then impact of urbanization on environment quality. So environmental quality, urbanization has been increasing. In India, we have uncontrolled and unplanned urbanization. This unplanned and uncontrolled urbanization has led to several impacts on environment. It is creating different kinds of problems like water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution. These are been, responsible for the declining of urban environment. Ecological problem, lack of clean air quality has also becoming low in almost in city life. And so these are the problems, urban environmental problems, impact of this leads to different kinds of diseases. It reduces the asthma, increases asthma type of diseases. Then lifespan also declining lifespan. When the environment became urban, environment became polluted, it reduces the lifespan of people to a certain extent. So these are the certain impact of environmental problems. Population growth is also polluting our environment in a many ways. So air quality has been declining. Construction of new industrial houses or industrial cities are also polluting more. Air quality, vehicular emission, industrial emission has reduces our air quality. Water quality has also been water level. Water quality केवल जे कम होची ता में water level town रो बा city रे urban city रो water level also declining. Water level ମଧ୍ୟ decline କରୁଛି. এবং treatment of water treatment plan has not been properly managed. Then another problem that pollute our environment is solid waste generation. Solid waste generation and liquid waste generation. The waste generation को हमें दो बार solid waste और liquid waste. So both these environment due to population growth, industrial expansion, that solid waste generation increasing there. So how to waste management is now becoming a problem in almost all urban cities. How to manage the waste? The waste management has become a very increasing a very proportion and creating a threat to urban environment. The municipal bodies are unable to manage properly the solid waste management or liquid waste management. That led to, and whatever they manage this solid waste, that is unscientific and unhygienic. That also create many problems. Then similarly, noise problem is also another problem that is created due to this urbanization. So air quality, noise due to excessive use of horns, increasing vehicles, then marriage party, all these are responsible. Industries industry machine, running of industrial machines, these also create many noise pollution. Besides, our social environment also become polluted because of all this. The crime also increases. That also create the crime, increasing crime are also polluting our environment of the city. So imitation of crime, gang wars, all these are also creating the social environment of the city. So how to build urban infrastructure? Urban environmental infrastructure should be built in a proper so that it can save the urban centers to decline further. So these are the transport system, better public transport systems to develop, better public transport and housing facilities. Government should provide housing, build more houses, provide housing facilities to poor and other people. Besides, there must be another roads should be built with the proper drainage system, and the roads should be maintained properly, road condition. Then there is escalating demand for urban basic services like housing, transport, healthcare. So healthcare, urban healthcare has become a great concern because the increasing population it is unable to provide better healthcare. As a result, the private nursing homes are very increasing, which exploits people in many ways. So that's why necessary steps should be taken for the betterment of the healthcare facilities in the cities, so that it can then water uh, clean water, providing clean water to use increasing urban population is also another urban infrastructure. So, how to provide clean water to these people is also important. Um, Clean water, providing clean water to the slums, to the common people, and that is because many people are suffering from very waterborne diseases, waterborne diseases. So that also that must be looked into. So these are the certain uh, impact on environment. Then urban governance or urban governance, the local bodies. So in our urban governance, the municipalities must be developed, and some steps should be taken later on. To have access to municipal administration, and municipal administration should take necessary steps for providing all basic amenities to the urban people. Then only if the municipalities or municipal administration will be more effective in towns, then people, people will be of town, people of the town will be able to get the different kinds of civic amenities in their doorsteps. So with this, we complete. So any question on slum, poverty, and environment? Any question, Canon? Any question?
Is there any question? So I don't think there is any question. Thank you very much, sir. So
Thank you,
only
sir.
one class is left for this course. So
Yes,
I
sir.
thank you, I mean, Jenna sir, and thank you, learners, for your patient hearing. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir.